portion of Hill of Justice. If we have anyone out there, just go ahead and text us, give us a thumbs up, or even go ahead and shout out something in the chat, and we'll see if you can see us and hear us. I like to always make the disclaimer that once we get on, anything can happen, and thus technical difficulties is part of a live show sometimes. So I just wanted to go ahead and say that. Let me get the formalities out of the way, guys. How are you doing?
Doing good, brother. How are you?
Yeah.
Pretty good, pretty good. I got a
I
we,
see you come to the light.
in what way?
I don't see any S's on you or anything like that. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, what's back here? I'm sorry.
I can't see. I can't
You
see
can't
back there.
see it.
What is that? Yeah,
That's
yeah,
okay. Eyesight
yeah.
is
I can see
going.
the cup.
I
That's the
was like,
first
my
thing that
brother.
goes.
Yeah,
That's the S there.
yeah. I feel like we've
See, I
led you to
thought you was talking.
Christ.
I thought you was talking about the hat, man. This is the first time I seen your hair. I didn't know what you had under the hat.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
hair is kind of straight. Yeah, I try to hide it under the hat sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes.
I'm proud of him, Wiz. I'm
Oh
proud
my
of him.
gosh, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ah, my goodness. I'm trying. I'm trying. Sometimes with my brother, boy, it's just like, what can you do, man?
You
What
know,
can
I've
you
only
do?
wanted the best for you, baby brother.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
that's
I know.
all I've ever wanted
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you.
right. I'm the new. I'm the thick-headed one. And,
Right.
that's right. That's right. All righty, guys. So, throwing. I guess some people have heard and gave us a thumbs up here on the audio. I just want to start off the show that last week, and we're old enough to remember what happened to Eric and Lau, but I'll just set this up. After 35 years behind bars, Eric and Lau Mendez went before a parole board, and they had a chance at freedom. But let's go ahead and put it this way: the board said no can do, and not just once. They went back at it twice in back-to-back days, one for the one brother, one for the other brother. So why, after all this time, were the Menendez brothers denied parole? And to understand why this parole hearing matters so much, we have to rewind the clock back to Beverly Hills in 1989. That's when the Menendez brothers, La was age
Oh
21
yeah.
at the time, and Eric was age 18. They stormed into their parents' mansion with shotguns. They shot their father, his name is Jose, and his mother, Kitty, and what could only be described as one of the most brutal double homicides that Hollywood has seen. And it captured the not only the United States by storm, but of course, caught the world by storm. How can two affluent kids just turning adults do this to their own parents? Well, then it turned into a trial, and not much until some years later. This was one of the trials of the century, and at that time, so what turned into also a media circus because of that trial. The defense argued for years, and it was particularly in this trial that the abuse drove the boys to snap. And what I'm talking about is physical and sexual abuse. And that's when Eric and Lau testified about that in that trial. So, particularly about their father sexually abusing them. So Eric described it as it started when he was a little kid and it was lasting into his teens. And he said their mother, Kitty, knew about it, but looked the other way. The prosecution, though, painted a different picture. They said these were two spoiled kids who killed for money, inheritance, and control. At the time, just to give you some backdrop, it was alleged that the parents were going to take them off the inheritance or something to that effect. And after two hung juries, they were retried and convicted of first degree murder and sentenced to life without parole in 1996. Why does that matter? Okay. Since then, the laws have changed. And that was supposed to be the end of it, case closed, justice served. But here's what happened. You fast forward to about 3 decades later, the brothers have been locked up. And since their early 20s, but in 1925, a major legal shift happened to change their fate. But before that, I want y'all to take a look at the video because I think that this is going to be very telling. It gives you some backdrop compared to what I was saying, and it's just important to see this video.
Well, tonight, Eric and Lyle Menendez are behind bars. That's after two separate parole boards denied their pleas for a release. CBS's Elise Preston in Los Angeles has the details.
Jerika, Eric and Lyle Menendez will both be eligible for parole again in 3 years. There are still two legal avenues they could pursue to get out of prison. There is what is known as a habeas corpus petition, which could review any new evidence in the case, or California's governor could also grant clemency. During Friday's hearing, Lyle Menendez said he suffered repeated physical and sexual abuse at the hands of his father, Jose. And for the first time, he said he was abused by his mother, Kitty. During the proceedings, the parole board stated it believes Menendez was genuinely remorseful for the 1989 murders at the family's Beverly Hills mansion, and also called Menendez a model prisoner in many ways. But the board said he violated many prison rules, including having a cell phone, ultimately deciding Menendez could still pose a risk to the public and would benefit from spending more time incarcerated. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman stands by the parole board's rulings.
So they now each have 3 years to get their act straight, to come clean with all their lies.
So there we are right there. And that is just, how do we feel about this?
I think the Wiz gotta, we're both ex-cops,
Right.
so we need to hear from a guy who, like, give us some wisdom.
Man, then this is, as Rome just pointed out, dude, is so part of the public. You know what I'm saying? I almost want to call it pop culture. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's just so part of the.
It is.
I was 11.
Mm-hmm.
You said 89, so I was
89.
11 when that came out. It was 89.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. So I was 11 years old when that came out, but I can remember it. So it's just even from that perspective, being that young, this is one of those events that I understood. You saw it on the news. It was on the news nonstop. It was on the news all the time. And of course, it's been catapulted just further into current times with the TV show, right? Netflix, I believe it was Netflix just dropped the show. So you've been hearing governors. They're in California, right? So I think it was Cali. Governor had juggled whether he was going to give them a pardon, or at least the question came up. Conversations have been had just because people have been more sympathetic to them, I guess, because of the way the show, specifically that show, painted them. Look, it's a crazy thing because any kind of abuse, especially sexual abuse, physical abuse, any kind of physical abuse looks like this. You know what I'm saying? And you had to have heard those stories, of course, all of us, not to speak for you two gentlemen, but just because of statistics wise, everybody knows somebody that has been abused in some shape, form, or fashion. Hearing them talk, I remember back in the day not believing them, but as experience, I get more experience, it sounds more believable. Like it's highly possible that it happened, highly probable. It's weird for me because I don't know, does that justify them murdering their parents in the way that they murdered them? Lying about it, it felt like they were more precise. It didn't feel like it was a crime of passion after the fact. It felt to me, just looking at, again, this ain't, and I haven't watched the show, so this isn't coming from the show, just coming from documentaries and stuff that I saw. Man, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I go back and forth. Like 'cause I'm very sympathetic to the fact that it's possible they were abused. Uh, do I think in terms of that thing that you just played, do I think that they would be a danger to society now? I'm leaning towards I don't think so. Like just being honest with you, just from what I've seen, it doesn't feel like it. Having the cell phone in prison enough to deny them, or because that's the way that just read, right? They had a cell
Right.
phone
That's what they want to
equals
intimate. Yeah.
him still being a danger to society. So I think just being a normal, just a grounded individual. I got all kinds of thoughts. I know I'm saying all kinds of things right now. So let me just focusing on that one thing. Like when I heard that, my brain rejected at least that part. It made me think, well, nah, that doesn't make them still uh, uh, a menace to society for having a cell phone. And then again, I don't know what the case may be. It's just hearing that report just sounded like it was something they just threw in there. Like I would need to have more. Like, hey, there was fighting on top of not following rules. What other rules weren't followed?
Sure.
I would have to have more than that. But again, this is all coming from a place where I'm not even sure is being abused justification for murder of that level and trying to cover it up. Does that make sense? That's the only place I'm having a hiccup at. You know what I mean? Where it's like, dude, that's not. I don't recognize that as being normal. I've seen people have passion and kind of lash out, but to see someone lash out and make efforts to hide it or get away with it or display a certain way in public is the place I get hung up on when this story comes up.
Okay, fair enough.
I'll say this. I think we got to keep the standard rule that it's only permissible to take a life to preserve your life or the life of the other. I mean, if we could just start taking lives because we've been wrong, well, then I got a lot of work to do. You know what I'm saying? But that can't be the standard of care. You should only be able to take a life to save your life or the life of a third party, um, which is no different than the standard for law enforcement. But I never thought the day would come when I would say this because I was always, when it came to murder, not when it came to these other ridiculous crimes that some of these prosecutors come up with, but when it comes to murder, I was always of the opinion that it should be life without parole. But I've changed that. And let me tell you why. When I was sheriff, I met a warden. He was retired at the time, and he was a warden of actually was a warden of Kentucky, and he was retired. And he said something to me I'll never forget. He said that when he took over being a warden of the state, he went and visited all the facilities, and he said, and what got to him is he went to where all the lifers were, and when he got there were men with rifles and there was patrols. But when he walked inside, folks were in wheelchairs, on dialysis, walkers, or whatever. And he said, he asked, what's all the security for? And the people said, well, these people are here for murder. You know, that's why we got security. And he's like, I get that. But he said, where are they going? Even if they could escape, how far can they go in a walker or wheelchair, dialysis or whatever? And he said it was at that point that he had to reconsider life without parole because at a certain point, you're running a convalescence home,
Correct.
which is a huge liability to taxpayers, and we're not talking millions, we're talking billions of dollars when you talk about incarcerating people. And if the theory is we're incarcerating people because they're a danger to society, because really the principle behind jail really it's not so much for punishment as it is that we need to lock away dangerous people from society, i.e., you're a child molester. Well, if you're out there, children can be molested, so you need to be locked up. You're a serial rapist, you're a serial killer, you're a killer, or whatever like that. But at a certain point, who can they kill?
Well, I'll give you a better
And
question.
we've got to figure that part out. You know, it all sounds good. Life without parole, throw away the key. But there comes a time we have to look. You know, the guy that taught me everything I know about crime fighting, the late Reuben Greenberg, he said that they did a study, and at the age of 35, most people who are released after the age of 35 rarely recidivate. And how it came up is they asked me, well, how do we deal with what's the deal with violent crime? Well, we know there's an age, and I think that age is between 14 and 25, and I guess it's probably between 14 really and 35 that most people
Mm.
Kind of froze up there. Well, I
Oh
will tell
yeah.
you this. You're back with us, Keith?
Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you
Yeah, I'm
this.
back with you.
Okay.
And go
You
ahead. Go
you
ahead.
you froze up a little bit. So the question
Yeah.
is thereafter, and this is where little brother comes in and says this. After a
Okay.
particular amount of time, 60, 70, and so on and so forth, who's left to take care of them anyway? So the system's going to be taking care of them anyway. They
That's
have
true.
to.
That's
So
true.
whether they're in jail or out and about, sure. I mean, and that's one of the comebacks on that.
And that's
And
what we've
isn't
got to
there a
fix
level
it.
of, I was about to say too, because Victor, that I hear it that way where there's separation. And of course the Menendez case is a little bit different because there are it was their parents, but I'm thinking about the victims as well. Because anytime you release somebody
Hmm.
that created a crime against someone, hurt somebody, uh, that's where I'm kind of torn too. Like, because I can give you and that's how complex some of these things. Just being transparent about it. You know what I mean? I can talk about this and be like, well, I think they'd be okay. But if it was one of my family members that was hurt by this, or someone I knew, or somebody
You
I
don't want
related
them
to,
out
if
at
it wasn't
all.
somebody I knew, then it's
Yeah.
like, man, nah, he's gotta pay for that because this person's has no life. They didn't get 30 years. They didn't get to live until 70. They're gone. And you don't want this person to have, because even them being in jail isn't enough either. That's
Hmm.
just sometimes all we can get is just that satisfaction of, okay, at least he's paying for this crime. And something like murder with this is hard to put a
Yeah.
timeline on that.
Yeah, you can't put a timeline on murder. I can tell you that. And if you take a life, the only really thing you can give is your life. And I think that's why it's either the death
Mm.
penalty or life without parole. But when we look at a lot of these other crimes, I think we're spending billions incarcerating people. Because you're right about that. When it comes to murder, there is no way. There is no what they call it. It's a word for it. I don't know why it's eluding me now, but not retribution, but restitution.
Mm.
There's no
Mm.
restitution for the crime of murder. You know, if I break in your house and I steal them, I can pay restitution and you can get your stuff back. But if I take a life, someone that was dear to you, there is no restitution for that.
Mm.
And that's why that's the highest crime. That's why that was the crime, of course, that got me into crime fighting because of the murder.
Mm.
And it's the highest crime of all. It's the theft for which there can be no restitution.
Right. Dwight sent us a question. What does a psychologist or criminal psychologist evaluation say of their current state of mind? That's a good question. We don't know the full gestalt of that just yet. So I would imagine at some point in time, um, they it depends on the case. The case is predicated on the fact that they did call in, they did tell the dispatcher that they killed their parents. I mean, the brutality of it. And there was another question, the brothers by Angela. The brothers might have felt trapped between the abuse and their lifestyle. Walking away didn't seem like an option. They may have thought that this was their only choice. And that's the tragedy of it. You generally always have a choice. How they
Mm.
felt like they didn't, especially with so much affluence that I mean, they lived in Beverly Hills. um they could have sued their parents, and many kids do, right? um
Mm.
and they could have came out
That's true.
with this issue. It's more to the point that you both were making, that, you know, in the years I've seen where people were abused like this, you know, you see Eric and Lau going in the pen for this and serving an inordinate amount of time. But let me go ahead and put this out there to you both. Gypsy Rose, she was trafficked and
Mm.
she killed her abuser. She spent some time in prison and she was able to come out and is living quite the life right now. You know, a lot
Mm.
of attention is being brought to her and everything like that. Is the double standard the the way people get murdered? Is it the double standard of gender involved?
Mhm.
Is it the double standard because she was poor of social economics? I mean, there's a lot to chew on these bones.
Right.
And you know what? You can't take out the politics of the double standard and all of it. You really can't. And a lot of people don't want to hear this, but what Angela just said is what I was getting ready to say. Would their outcome have been different if they weren't wealthy? Believe it or not, uh, and I refer to it as a Robert Ford syndrome in the book that I wrote. But there are a lot of prosecutors and a lot of people that target the wealthy, the the celebrities, the powerful. They just do. And now that doesn't now don't get me wrong, these guys did the killing. I'm not saying they're targeted. If the two dead bodies didn't pop up, we wouldn't be talking here today. But what I'm saying is there is a phenomena out there where you have a prosecutor that gets out of school, he still has $100,000 in student debt, in loans or whatever. He's now a prosecutor. No one knows who he is. Nobody cares. And if he sees an opportunity to prosecute someone that's has a name, he sees it as a come up for himself, or they see it perhaps as a way to get back. Well, okay, you may have all this wealth and power, but I have the power to prosecute you and put you in jail. That exists. We see it a lot. You see, it like with Alec Baldwin. What the heck was that about? It was an accidental shooting. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So,
Mm.
and it's
Found
called
out that was ridiculous.
it was ridiculous,
Mm.
right? And we know that with a lot of them, they're prosecuting that person for being that particular person.
Correct.
Even if you look at this thing with Diddy, and I'm not saying that he's an angel, and I'm not saying that everything he did was right, but a lot of that stuff, and we talked about it a little bit when it happened, you know, and everyone's talking about how arrogant he is. But are you prosecuting the guy because he's arrogant, or are you prosecuting him because he committed a crime? There's no federal law against being arrogant, and there are people who, because of their insecurities, if they perceive you as being arrogant and they're in a position to prosecute, they're gonna carry that, because if they just prosecute Pookie, there's no publicity in that. But a lot of these people want to say, well, I was the one to prosecute such and such or whatever. So you got politics that way.
Mhm.
And then you also got the other disparities that you're talking about. But that stuff does exist. I mean, you're right about that. It's something that we can't deny. And then you got all the other people who end up in the system, and it may not be because of who they are, but because people are trying to get their numbers up.
Right.
So you can indict a ham sandwich, or you just put all these people in and you put these charges on them that really don't fit the element of the crime, and you do it to say that I have a 95% conviction rate. And most of the stuff you're putting on them is bullshit, instead of just getting to the crux of what they really did. And if you're really trying to correct what they did, as opposed to come up with all of these other things. Because if you're going to charge people for having the type of parties that this man was having, there's a spot here in Atlanta where they should be, that's been there for as long as
Yeah,
I know,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
should be
That's
shutting down. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying everything this man did is right. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been charged with anything. But,
Mm.
a lot of it you see inflated. And it's because they're prosecuting the people for being who they are, as opposed to the actual crime.
Let me
And
give
then,
you both a wrench. I'm gonna throw a
yeah,
wrench in there.
sure.
California's youth offender laws, parole laws, is designed for rehabilitation. Okay, and the studies show that
Mhm.
people, now this is the wild part about this, that people who commit these type of crimes under the age of 26 have developing brains. Okay. So try to feel me on
I've
that.
heard that.
Okay. All right. So they have developing brains. All right. And what they're trying to say is with these studies is, of course, there should be some leniency with that. And because of that, kids who are under 26, they develop, a little bit slower, their brains aren't developed all the way, they have impulsivity issues. And because of that, this law doesn't guarantee so much parole. What they're just saying is it just guarantees them a hearing because they had life without parole. I just wanted to be very clear about that. But now, since these acts were committed before they were 26, and with this new law in place, they have the possibility of parole because they were under 26 and after a certain amount of time, which I believe is 25 years, 30 years or something to that effect. How you guys feel about that?
I think they got a point to a degree. I just think I don't know if we should bring that into factor for murder. Because if we do that, then hey, look, they had a developing brain. That's why they were killing people. I don't know about that. I could see certain things where people get involved in gangs, gang-like crime. They got a developing brain. They got caught up in a certain type of music and videos, and they wanted to live that lifestyle. You start killing people, all bets are off. But I do believe that there are people who get caught up in things during that stage of their life. And I do believe, like I was talking about earlier, the study they did when you turn 35, that's totally different. That with time,
I think he froze up there. Wiz, what's your
Yeah, man. Oof, that's a tough one because I do believe that I've heard that before. That you're still developing. Again, I think I agree with him. I think murder is where I would cross the line. I can see where that applies. And again, I think the biggest thing and I know that's not the reason for jail, but just thinking about the victims and the victim's family. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just something that to me is a hard sell. Now, I will be transparent and say I don't know a lot about the parole process.
Mhm.
So even when I hear you say that they're just qualified to have parole, I guess it depends on what that process is. As psychiatrists on the on this board, what considerations are you making? Is someone communicating with the family? Like, I think it would depend on what that board would look like
It is a
too.
big
I guess would
process,
make it
just to let
okay.
you know. Yeah, it is a
I
big,
figure because I know a lot of people get denied
right,
for
right.
parole.
Yeah, and there's a
More
misnomer
often than
too.
not. So
Yeah, there's a misnomer too that hey, guess what? Every year you come up for parole. That's not the case, guys. I mean, put a lot of people there. The fact of
yeah,
the matter is this that I think that is a fallacy. I think that the federal system, and it's rare on that case that it comes up, on yearly, but that's rare, 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 rare.
okay.
Now, I will tell you this that in California, if you do not get parole, there's a positive. What they can do from that point on is it's up to the trial board after that, and they have that right from 3, 5, 7, 10 to 15 years to grant you your next one. So it can be a minute before you get your next trial board. Um, for some states, I believe like Texas, it's like 1 year, but that's not a guarantee. They can go from 1 year to 5 years. So if you miss out the first time, it's good chance that you may not have it would be
A
multiple
window.
years on
And I heard that with the Menendez, they said the next one is 3 years, right? Even in
yeah, and
that
that's what
news
people
report.
are pissed off about, that
yeah.
some people are pissed off about that. But to you both, we're talking about let's talk about Gypsy Rose and let's talk about Lyle and Eric.
I think the
Is there
Gypsy
the
Rose
double
thing.
standard?
I think it's a double standard. I had to look at the old cases. I was mistaking her with we had that young lady that was, I believe she was being sex trafficking.
Mhm.
That ended up, I don't know what her name was, but I had confused the two.
Mhm.
And in that case, I felt like it was justified. You know what I mean? Murder is murder, but it's like so even in that case, but with Gypsy Rose specifically, it's got to be, man.
Is it
It's
justified because we're men and we feel as though that women are less are more vulnerable? And
well, so only in that case, and I can't remember the girl's name. I think because she was being trafficked, there was a crime being committed, even with how that male dealt with her. That it almost, not to say, not to justify revenge or anything, but to me, I feel like you can argue, and I don't know all the details of that case, but I feel like you can almost argue, I had to do this for my safety. This person is controlling, and again, just understanding how that kind of abuse, because again, some of this just dealing with. I used to teach when I was in the military. I used to teach the sexual harassment and sexual that kind of training, even spousal abuse, those kind of things. So you got those signs. So I think intellectually, that's where I got a lot of it. Like I said, I've experienced and witnessed and had troops that went through this, that, and the other. But then you have that training that kind of put, oh, this is something that happens. Like this lady in this relationship might not say, and more, and I say along those lines, is more women being abused, at least reporting, because we find out that men don't report this stuff a lot, probably because they're men.
Sure.
But more women report this. So some of it's not just because this woman is weak. It's not so much as that. It's that's the report we're used to hearing as well. We're used to hearing, you hear the word abuse. If I say sexual abuse, most people's mind is going to go towards a female, not knowing that there's plenty of men
Fair enough.
get stuff dropped in their drinks and woke up on it. I've got military stories of all kinds of people that woke up.
Oh, I bet.
After being abused. But the Gypsy Rose thing, it just feels like you're right. There's a lot of parallels in the fact that she was abused as well. Now again, I don't know at what point is there a snapping point. I don't know enough about Gypsy Rose's case to know that. Like, was it a like, to me, I don't know why that's important. You're abused. Why not leave? Why not tell nobody? And again, I understand how it is to be. It's not always as simple as that for someone who's in that situation. Sometimes it doesn't seem, and there's consequences to when you tell the teacher. And it gets back to this person that you feel has you trapped in this psychological whatever. But at the same time, I think I would like to know, was it something that she snapped? Was she being abused and walked over and grabbed a knife and did XYZ? Or in the case of the Menendez brothers, just felt like it was just a little bit more thought about. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say it wasn't passion or it was completely mapped out. But that makes a difference, man. But besides that, just looking at the case, just reading hers and looking at it, just seems like there's a lot of similarities. So it's got to be a double standard because she was treated differently.
Okay.
Just on the bit. I know that was a long story. Long story short.
No. I wanted to hear that perspective.
I definitely think there's some mistreatment.
Yeah. I want to, and brother, how you see that? I see you now in your head.
I think you got a point there. A lot of cases are handled differently depending on who's the prosecutor, who's the officer, on how things are determined. It's like we know that most of the time when an officer goes on the scene, if a woman is assaulted, the man's guaranteed to go to jail. Now, and he should, of course. But I've seen situations over the year where the man was actually assaulted and no action is taken. Well, she's a female. And of course, men should have a right not to be assaulted by females as well, too. But a lot of it comes from how people see things or whatever. So gender can definitely play a role. And women are going to have more sympathy because of the weaker vessel, no doubt. So I agree with him on that.
Right.
Hey, let me say this. I did just I'm reading while I'm on air with y'all. No. This was premeditated. It was planned out. She planned to kill her mother. I surprised she got special treatment. I think it's a definitely 100% a double standard.
Yeah,
And,
it's no doubt.
and
She
it,
planned this out. You know what I'm saying? Because
right.
you
You
could
know,
have the amount of planning. Because I'm gonna tell you what planning does versus passion. Because I get it. Again, you're trapped. But if I'm able to plan, and some of her plan had an outside piece, right? It says something about she let a got person in. So you're reaching out to somebody. That somebody could have easily been police officer, again, teacher, or a hotel for me to get up out of here, or a job where I can get some deal. That planning could have went into a direction that didn't end with someone's life being ended. You know, so
Sure.
you know, at
yeah,
the
come
end
on.
of the day, in this criminal justice system, the main fallacy is the people in the system. If you look at the laws and the way they're written, it's a pretty good system that's on paper. The problem is the people. And when I tell you this is what I mean. You know, you can put a robe on somebody. That doesn't mean that they're going to be fair and impartial and have integrity. I mean, there's just
Mhm.
no way to know that. So a lot of times when your cases go before these people, it's like rolling a dice. What judge will you get? Was Is it someone that's reasonable? Because they have a lot of leeway. They can. There are judges. I've experienced that judges where they want a
Mhm.
conviction, so they're going to play referee to make sure the prosecutors win, so they can get you convicted. And then there are judges that if they don't, and you know, they're the way the law is set up, the law can say something and a judge can come out with an excuse to rule different than what the law says. So the question is, who's a prosecutor, who's a judge? And if you got people who want you convicted, you're going to get convicted. And if they don't want you convicted, you're not, especially with grand juries. You know, anytime you see a prosecutor walk outside a grand jury room and say, well, you know, they didn't indict him, it's a farce. The grand jury is going to do whatever a prosecutor
Mhm.
tells them to do, and they have a lot of leeway in there and tell them what to do, and they'll take cases before a grand jury to make it look like they're doing something and then say, well, we tried. So a lot of it has to do with who's in charge, and all you can do is hope that you actually get someone who's fair and impartial for real and doesn't have a hidden agenda.
Well, the standard, the legal standard is what would a reasonable person do? Okay. And I think
Mhm.
that the bigger question, and this is for everyone out there that's watching and listening to this, is that the legal system doesn't want to go ahead and expose this. If you take a look at this dynamic I'm about to give to you. So you take a look at somebody like a woman who happens to go ahead and get beat up time and time and time again. Okay. And you'll have a jury that sees that long term abuse. And then at some point in time, she snaps and kills someone. They can see that
Mhm.
as being, hey, guess what? Justifiable because a reasonable person could not take that level of abuse for time and time again. They could take a look at Eric and Lyle being two able-bodied men coming in there with shotguns
Mhm.
both, you know, and often his parents, and think that that was just overkill. Somebody should have had enough sense to talk to one another to communicate, hey, guess what? Let's not do this to mom
Right.
and dad.
Right.
Right. But we've also take a look at, the subway vigilante many years ago. He was getting mugged on a train in New York,
Mhm.
and he decided to go ahead and shoot those individuals. Eventually, got out of parole,
Mhm.
and then so on and so forth. But it comes down to that the criminal justice system doesn't want to go ahead and say, yes, we do wait certain things in this manner. We do wait that maybe, like right now, there is no way in God's great earth, if I was to go ahead and insult somebody, the first thing they're going to say to me, oh, guess what? You have training. You shouldn't have done that. I'm going to go ahead and
Right.
probably see a harder sentence if I hurt somebody, let alone kill somebody, and then I'm going to be in front of the
Right.
Miami Herald and everywhere else. Keith, you will too. In fact, you'll be in front of Clayton County, and most likely you'll be in front of the USA Today newspaper.
Hell, I
because
already have. What you
right.
talking about?
And you didn't
Right.
even touch nobody. Like,
Exactly. And I
you
didn't even
know,
touch
Mhm.
anybody.
you didn't even touch
It
nobody.
changes as it goes.
Right. I found myself on Sean Hannity's show and a whole bunch of other stuff because I didn't even punch the guy, but I did another
Mm.
move and that was it. So it depends on what the background of the person. Where's you going down to because of the fact that you got
Mhm.
military training. So it
Right.
does it does put into a different element of who that person is, what their background is, and what a reasonable person should do in that situation. What's your take on that, Keith?
Mhm.
Yeah, but you can't take this away too. Unfortunately, it's more to it. It's very, very subjective. I mean, if you look at different rulings in different districts, like in my case, for instance, different circuits conflict each other. So, like, what I did, one circuit says you can do it, the other circuit says you can't do it. There's still no direction in it.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And that's not just in my case. That's a lot. There's not a lot of uniformity there. So they kind of wing it as they go. I mean, at the end of the day, if they like you, they'll give you qualified immunity. If they don't like you, they'll all sit around and say you don't get qualified immunity. Um, it's not what we thought it was when we were kids. We used to look at judges and like, wow, this is a person who is fair and impartial. You can put a robe on anybody. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be
Mhm.
fair and impartial. And they have agendas
Man,
as well too.
But that's assuming that the
man, I
judge
said,
is doing that. We're talking about a jury, and we're
right.
getting tried by the jury.
But let me tell you what the problem is. Okay, you got on the federal system it's called a motion in limine, so a judge can control what that jury hears. So here's another thing: a lot of people are naive about. I know I certainly was. I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna present this evidence. When they hear who was behind it, when they hear how it got started, well, guess what? The judge prevented me from presenting
Oh,
that
yeah,
information,
that's true.
and no doubt did it on purpose because we know that she was friends trying to take my seat. So she wanted me to lose. So she made sure I couldn't present certain things. So it's not just as simple as it's a jury. You got this judge who's a referee and they can actually control it. You would think when it comes to a defendant should be able to present whatever he wants. But they can literally do a motion. We don't want him saying this. We don't say him that because if he says that, they won't find him guilty.
Mm.
And
Wiz?
so you
Mhm.
right, so it's a lot more complicated than
Yeah,
okay, it's a jury. People talk
fair
about
point.
you were convicted by a jury of your peers. Okay, really? They couldn't even hear all the information.
Fair point.
Yeah,
Bro,
yeah.
I'm about to say, man, I had a situation, man. I was supporting a family member in a custody issue. No, it was restraining order issue. And I saw the judge mistaking who was who in a case, went through the whole situation and was going to have one person get locked up for one. I can't remember the reason was, but I remember getting all the way to the end and that person ended up standing up, like not understanding like what's going on. The lawyer stood up and he had confused who he thought this person was here for one thing and that person was there. So, and it gave a good speech. I saw multiple cases. I was in there for a minute that day. Awesome judge for the most part.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So what I took from that was, dude, there's a human element, like you said. You think this justice is blind kind of aspect, or watching too much Perry Mason or whatever the case may be, and you're dealing with this human element, man. But I do want to say, not to bring back up Gypsy Rose,
Okay, yeah.
but I didn't realize because when y'all were saying it, I was thinking I was judging it by the parole
Mhm.
aspect of it.
Mhm.
But man, that lady was only given 10 years to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. How about that?
Hey, let
So
me tell
so
you. Hey, let me
so
tell
yeah,
you,
the 2 years off of parole, I'm actually cool with. It's the fact that she only got 10 years to begin with
man.
is bananas to me.
You have no idea. When I was in Arkansas, I was with guys serving 30 years for nonviolent drug offenses.
Mhm.
But let me tell you one that's interesting, and it deals with sex crimes. So there's one guy there serving 30 years because he received a video, which he should not have received. I mean, there's no way to justify it. But he never actually met or had any physical contact with the subject of the video.
Mm.
The woman who sent him the video was the mother of the child. Very inappropriate video, a video of her filming her child unclothed while she was sleeping. Well, she gets 5 years, and she's the one that sent him the video, and he gets 30 years. But then there were guys there that actually did things to the child
A little technical
the
Oh
difficulty.
kid,
man,
hold a
that's
gun
the
to their head.
oh yeah.
Right? Exactly. There's a discrepancy and an inconsistency, and it's a luck of the draw. You know, it's not just my case where you got inconsistent rulings in different circuits, but you know, you see one guy that has done something clearly greater than this person. He's got 8 or 10 years, and then this other guy has 30 years. It's the mood of the judge.
Yeah, I want to bring up this
Mhm.
question that just popped up from Lady Total Dove. What about women that pre-planned against a husband and called grape? Of course, we know what that means. To be able to acquire material items and money they could gain from sending him to prison. Um, that's a loaded question. I will tell you that that's not that's not an infrequent phenomenon, you know. And this is where prosecutors and more importantly, this is where I hold defense attorneys more in this way. Okay.
We could do a whole show
Defe
on that, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
honestly, the defense
Yeah.
attorneys, you know, they're dealing with this. They should have a mechanism to go ahead and tell the prosecutors, "Hey, guess what? You and I know that a lot of this stuff is bullshit." And he say, she say, and you know, of course, I'm thinking about that. This is a marital situation. When you bring marital issues into this equation, there's certain there's certain leeways that they give for that. Only up until recently have they started using grape and really holding, you know, husbands to this standard that, hey, guess what, you know, it used to be in years past where that was not that wasn't going to be looked at. Right now they do, and they hammer hard about that. And whenever you go ahead and do that, you know, there is a slippery slope. I, I'm
Mhm.
not saying that there aren't men doing that type, raping their wives, you know.
Mhm.
However, we also seen it on the other way where, you know, wives are trying to get back at their husbands for whatever reasons. I'll give you a
Mhm.
case in point. And boyfriends and girlfriends. You know, this one girl, I say this story's too much, but this one girl, I got a call, get the belongings, and we go to the street. We get saw the woman. She had to go down in the basement. She lived in the basement. She was getting her belongings, and her and her boyfriend came to help her. Right. Um, it turned out to be that in this situation, the sister wanted to go ahead and of course she didn't know that her boyfriend that or the boyfriend didn't know that the sister was actually married. um and more importantly, she didn't know that but she let this out as he was getting his stuff, and told him, hey, you know, those medications that she's using right there, it's because she's infected with HIV.
Mm.
The,
Mhm.
the husband and the wife knew that. All right, the boyfriend did not. When I tell you there
Mhm.
was a 25-person melee, me and other officers and people on the street that were fighting because of that situation,
Whew.
and it didn't even have to be that way. That could have been dealt in court. So you say, why? How's that? How's that deal with this stuff? Well, the husband was pissed off at the fact that, oh, she had a boyfriend,
Yeah.
and saying that, oh, guess what? You gave me HIV. And I was raped. And it
Mm.
just became it just became a cluster F. Let's just put it that way. It was just a mess.
Man, I had tons of literally, and I don't know if they did it on accident But when we were doing this training, again, I was one of the trainers, one of the instructors for this program, and we got access to all the cases that had happened within that year. It didn't have the victims' names on it,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna tell you how crazy. This is Okinawa, Japan, small island. There was stories on there because we had been out. There was stories on there that I knew who had reported XYZ. And there were some cases that was it was husband and wife, husband, wife saying that such and such happened. And it was a learning experience for me as well. I don't want to go into details with it, but there were certain things that the female did that she did sexually that I didn't even see the possibility of him being the aggressor. If I can't go into, I don't want to go into too many details.
Sure.
But there was stories on there where I had been around those people, and I can tell you that it just wasn't the case. Where this girl had reported something, and I just know that at least that night, that's not what happened. I just know for a fact that that's not what happened. Never had to say anything because the guy didn't end up getting in trouble or anything. It was just a list of these investigations and some of the cases, and some of them were just complaints that were made. But man, to hear your story is just wild. Some of the stories that come out and trying to determine what's real and what's not. I mean, it's just part of society.
Yeah.
I like to lean towards. I try to take everything seriously because I do also know we have a society where those things aren't taken seriously either. You know what I'm saying? For instance, it's easy to dismiss. You hear a married couple and they say great, then we're like we zone out completely. You know what I'm saying? Like how's that even? I don't know about now. Like I said, just training now. But I know when I first heard that, this was probably 9 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I first heard that a married couple, it was like, really? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, just throwing that out there, just anecdotal stories. And there was tons of them.
Right.
I'm only saying a few that I know, but there was like hundreds of stories. I say about half of them were, boyfriend and girlfriend, husband and wife kind of thing, abuse stuff.
Next week we hope to have the Truth Ain't in Us podcast. And Wiz, I'd love for you to come in on that too.
Yeah, we're gonna need your backup, no doubt.
Yeah,
I'm here.
All right. Next week, and certainly, I would like to get their opinion about marital bliss, and particularly, and on a serious note, on grape and what constitutes grape to them. I think that would be fascinating. We want to put them through the paces with a case that you're familiar with the Baltimore mother who expired her 2 children and had them in the trunk, and see what their perspective is on that. But brother, when it comes to that portion of the grape portion, I would love to hear what they have to say about that, and when did they consider that, and particularly the word no, because we can have that conversation for 2 hours just talking about the word no.
Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Right. And no means no, but it's gonna be an interesting show next week. And Wiz, I'm glad you're gonna be there to back, because I was on their show, The Truth Ain't in Us. So I got ganged up by 3 females. That was very, very interesting. So it'll be good to have some backup here or whatever. It'll be 3 up there. It should be a very interesting debate show that I think it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to get the male female perspective. Because as all good cops know, there's 2 sides to every story, and then there's the truth. And we try, and those who are trying to do the right thing, we try to play King Solomon and split the baby.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, starting with you, Wiz, what you got planned going on this week as we wrap things up?
Man, so mostly I got my the Prop Wiz show. I'm on the 1/6 scale man show on Mondays and Wednesdays.
But I got the Prop Wiz show, my own show where I'm just doing box openings. So I do got a Ghostbuster action figure that I'll be opening up this week, and whatever comic book news pop up, I'll be online talking about that. So really trying to turn it down. My daughter plays volleyball.
Mhm.
All my money's going to that. I feel like I bought a vehicle this time. It was $5,000-$6,000 for that girl to play volleyball. Just found out she's on the national team.
Oh,
She went to Orlando
congratulations.
last year.
What's her name?
Thank you.
Let's give her
She
a
went to
shout
Or-
out.
It's Trinity.
Trinity.
Yeah, man,
All right, Trinity. Great
Yeah.
job.
And
Yeah.
she's doing awesome, man. But so we got to go to Orlando twice, and either Philly or New Orleans. So I done spent a car, and we got some traveling time, man. So I'm gonna be moving like a millionaire.
Next weekend, you're in Philly? I mean, in Orlando?
This week. No. It won't be until after. So that doesn't start until October. She's in the high school, in the middle school thing now, but she already tried out and made the national team, but they don't start until January. So it'll be next year.
All
But yeah, man. So that's it, man. Just doing family stuff, man, and loving to get on this, man. I was real excited to see that. I just read about the Menendez brothers this morning, so that stuff must have just happened because I just saw
It just happened this week,
a little clip, man. Yeah. So
this week.
Man, we've
glad to
enjoyed
be here,
having you, man. We enjoyed having you. Have been a
oh
great
man, you guys are
influence.
awesome, man.
You've been a great influence on my brother. You see, he's not wearing the S no more, and I see the Batman stuff in the back. I mean, just a great influence because you know I want the best for my brother.
No, that's
I mean, he's
not true.
family, man. He's best. You just have a great influence on him. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Superman ain't that bad, man. Superman ain't that bad. I'm telling you.
Well, let's.
I got a text. A friend. We might need to have him on the show.
Okay.
What did he text me exactly? He went and
He
saw
said
the
Superman is
movie.
great.
Let me get this for you. I don't want to misquote him because I mean he's a man of integrity.
Listen.
Oh, this is where he said, "You were right. I fell asleep twice on Superman movie. And Crypto made the movie at least what I saw went awake." But anyway, you
can't judge Superman by that one movie though. Come on.
Of course not.
Right.
I thought I've seen some decent Superman movies.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to this.
Especially that Batman versus Superman movie.
That was good one.
Rose, like, let's get on subject.
Yeah.
Let's get on to something else. Brother, what you got going on this week?
You know what? Pretty much the same. Just campaigning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. Just campaigning. There's some things that came up we may discuss. You know, what we didn't get a chance to discuss today is what's the call to action? How do we solve this imbalance in the criminal justice system? And I got some ideas that I think could really work. You know, I think we got to deal with prosecutors and judges the same way I dealt with drug dealers. You know, I just simply stopped their ability from selling drugs by putting cars in front of their house so they couldn't sell drugs. But I think with prosecutors, you got to do the same thing. You got to take away things like grand juries where they can just go in without the defense or without anything and indict who they want when they want. And if you put those type of guards in place, not only can it protect innocent people, but I think we won't see this backlog of cases, and it'll save not millions but billions of dollars. So, you know, we didn't get a chance to discuss that. And then one day we're gonna have to get into this plea deal thing. Because is it a plea deal or is it a plea gun being held to people's heads? Hey, take this plea, get 5 years, but if not, you get 15. So you're punishing people for exercising their constitutional rights. You take them to a grand jury, they can't be there, they're suddenly indicted, and you got prosecutors who unfortunately will lie to a grand jury, and then next thing you look, they're looking at a plea deal. And then you see all of this craziness that we've been talking about in this show here. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff in the future.
Yeah. Well, this is what I got this week going on. I have I'm going to still continue to be handsome. I'm going to continue to keep on doing what I got to do to make sure that we bring out great content for the good folks.
Absolutely.
And I'm still going to go ahead and keep the S underneath this shirt.
It's actually under there.
Well, you know, it's always
take
under
it
there.
out, please. Okay,
it's just like these. The guns are always. That's always. I didn't. I mean, that's why you don't feel so protected around me, man.
I see. I will give him credit. Now you know, I'm in good hands.
Yeah, you're in good hands around
me. Anytime I'm with him, it's like
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
having a light skinned version of Mr. T. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
hey.
this is a great time to stop this show. It's completely gone off the rails. Please like, subscribe,
Yes,
and comment, but not on that. Okay, please don't do that. Okay.
absolutely.
So I want to
Absolutely.
go ahead and thank once again Wiz as our guest today,
Thank you guys, man.
and we would
Yes.
love for you to come
Yeah.
back next week because I think we got something really, really, really
Yeah.
coming about with the Truth Ain't in Us crew, and it'll be good to see a bunch of us get together and see what they have to say about certain matters and to bounce those ideas off of one another. So once again, brother, you both made the show great, and let's go ahead and do this next week. Okay.
Absolutely. Strength and honor. Take
Okay.
care,
Take
Wiz.
care, everyone.
All right.
Yeah.